everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Super excited that you're here. While we give it a few minutes to let everyone trickle in, I will go ahead and cover some ground rules before we get started and really dive into the meat and bones of the presentation today. So first and foremost, let us know where you're joining from. Put it into the chat. We'd love to see where everyone is coming from and where you're all located, and maybe some people right next to each other. But first and foremost, go ahead and if you guys have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. We'll leave room at the end for Q&A, but don't feel like you have to wait till the very end to ask your questions. We will feel free to get to them as we go throughout the presentation today. Also, if we're going throughout and there's any thoughts that get sparked, or you're any strategies that you guys find that are really working for you, feel free to put those in the chat as well. We'd love to see what you guys are currently doing and highlight that as well. Secondly, this session will be recorded and the recap will be sent out first thing tomorrow morning. So you guys can get all of the goodies there. If you guys need to hop off for any reason, you'll be able to access the recording tomorrow as well. And lastly, feel free to take one minute or two if you would like to write your experience just while we're going throughout our event today. We're always looking for ways to improve and content, so we'd love your feedback. So if you want to take the time, please feel free to do that as well. But lastly, we are just super excited that you're here. We know this is such a busy time for nonprofit organizations, and so super excited that you've chosen to spend some time with us. And I'm really excited to kick off this conversation with our good friends at Community Boost. So for this conversation on storytelling strategies fueling your multi-channel year-end fundraising success. So super excited. Community Boost helps forward-thinking nonprofits step into their full online potential by delivering the digital marketing results needed to ensure mission success. So they're an extension of your nonprofit team that integrates seamlessly and is forever focused on improving your ROI. So super excited to kick it off today. I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to you, Candace and Geraldine.
Thank you so much, Allie. That was an amazing intro, and I'm just so excited to be here with you all today, chatting about storytelling strategies fueling multi-channel year-end fundraising success. I know this is a busy time for all of you, so I'm so thankful that you're here, and hopefully you'll come away with a lot of practical takeaways you can implement this year-end to help really drive success. And so I can't wait to introduce Geraldine in just a moment. But before we introduce ourselves, Allie did such a great job talking about Community Boost. So we just want to let you know that we exist to empower nonprofits and causes through high impact digital marketing, so you can change the world. This year, we've worked with about 500 nonprofits directly, both through our services and our accelerator program, with a total goal of helping them raise $50 million online through the end of this year. And we also host the Nonprofit Marketing Summit and lots of other events and webinars like this one, and have impacted about 50,000 nonprofits. If you have been to the Nonprofit Marketing Summit, I would love to hear from you in the chat. It's always nice to see some familiar faces. So without too much further ado, I'll just introduce myself really briefly here. My name is Candace, and I'm the Director of Events at Community Boost. I've been here about 2 years, and during that time have run 4 nonprofit marketing summits and impacted over 100,000 nonprofit professionals that registered for them. Crazy stuff. And so I am in a previous life, what it feels like, I went to college for film and English literature. So I am obsessed with storytelling, have studied it immensely, and hopefully will give you a few tips that you can take away today about how you can create those stories that really drive the most growth this year end. And I am very excited to have with us Geraldine. Geraldine, I'll let you take it away.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Super excited to be here today. My name is Geraldine Zamora. I am an account director here at Community Boost. I've been here for a little over 4 years. And in my 4 years here, have had the opportunity to work with probably over 300 to 400 nonprofits. So I always say that when I'm working with an organization or talking about storytelling or talking about how to drive donations, I'm never starting from scratch. I'm starting from the foundation that we've built these past 4 years. and that we've grown and learned from. A little bit of background on myself. So I come strictly from a heavy nonprofit background, primarily started off with NGOs while doing some world traveling, and then brought it back home and decided to get my master's in nonprofit management with a primary focus in donor cultivation and fundraising. And today I oversee our digital marketing strategies, more back channel, omni-channel comms with the team. And today I'm going to be sharing a little bit more about what that omni-channel approach looks like. So thank you for joining us, and thanks for sharing where you're from in the chat. Super cool to see that there's people joining us from just all over the world.
Awesome. Thanks, Geraldine. And so before we dive into everything today, I want to give you a quick rundown on what we're really covering. So first up, we're just going to be going into the storytelling essentials for year-end success. Next up, we're going into year-end appeal framework to drive donations. So we distilled what we've seen work for a lot of our clients, as well as just any nonprofit in general, after reading hundreds, if not thousands, of year-end appeals and distilling that framework for you. And then we'll talk about the multi-channel approach with the storytelling tips that you need to drive engagement. So I am so excited to dive right into our content today and get into the storytelling essentials for year-end success. So the big thing when it comes to year end is that you want to drive the most donations possible. And I've seen time after time of many appeals or just stories in general, starting out with more of like a statistic to capture the eye. And that can give people a good context for how broad your cause is and how broad the issue is. But without the empathetic piece, people will get lost in the sauce. They're not going to connect to really the story that you're telling and really the goal that you're trying to accomplish with your year-end campaign as well. So the trick to year-end storytelling success is to turn that knowledge about a cause into empathy, which will move people to action. So for example, I was checking out Project Renewal's website the other day, and I learned that 14% of New York City lives in poverty, and there's 86,510 homeless people. That is an insane statistic. But I looked a little further on their website, and I learned about a story from Luis, who basically as a child suffered from abuse from his family, and to cope used alcohol and drugs. His substance abuse increased, and he experienced severe depression and anxiety, eventually becoming homeless at just 20 years old. And for decades, he cycled between street homelessness, psychiatric wards, and incarceration. But then when the pandemic took hold, Luis found himself deeply depressed and thought about harming himself. But instead, he entered the shelter system and was referred to psychiatric services at Project Renewal's 3rd Street shelter. Through therapy and medication from his Project Renewal psychiatrist, he was finally able to regulate his emotions. He said, "I was able to open up with my feelings and experiences for the first time." And with this newfound stability, Luis secured an apartment in Times Square in the beginning of spring of 2022. He still meets with his Project Renewal psychiatrist each month, which helps him maintain his sobriety and navigate his mental health journey. He said, "I don't have suicidal thoughts anymore. I feel happy and proud. I've come a long way." Now, that story is powerful. That turned a statistic of 86,000 people that are homeless into someone that I can imagine my donation going to. And so this is really what makes everything that you do more powerful. And so we do have a video that we want to queue up for you to share a little bit more about this idea.
Right. 1 minute.
Yeah, all good. And I just want to hear from everyone in the chat as we get this queued up. Does this resonate with you? Do you tell a lot of stories already in your fundraising materials?
little blurry, but at least the audio's there.
I want to tell you a story about a little boy named Ben. Ben is 2.5 years old, and Ben has brain cancer. And Ben's really happy. He's happy because he's been through 2 rounds of chemo and radiation, and he feels good for once. He doesn't feel yucky, and his father's enjoying seeing Ben's happiness. But as the father tells the story of Ben and his cancer, the father's voice begins to break. And he says, it's very difficult to play with Ben because Ben thinks everything is wonderful, but I know something that Ben doesn't, that Ben's dying. And he talks about how difficult it is to play with Ben, knowing that in 3 or 6 months, Ben will be dead. And yet Ben is so happy, he's so beautiful. And so the father tries as hard as he can to enjoy Ben, to be joyful around Ben. But then he says in the middle of this short story that it's an amazing thing to know how little time one has left. And as he says that statement, he has merged himself with his son. It's as if the father himself is dying. So in my laboratory, we've studied this story extensively. And what we found is that 2 primary emotions were elicited. One is distress, and the other is empathy. At the same time, when we asked people what they felt after the story was over, we really couldn't get very clear answers. So we began doing other studies on this story. So we took blood before and after, and we found that the brain produced 2 interesting chemicals. One is called cortisol, which focuses our attention on something important. So cortisol correlated with our sense of distress. So the more distress you felt, the more cortisol you released, and the more you paid attention to that stimulus. The second chemical release is called oxytocin, which is associated with care and connection and empathy. And oxytocin was correlated with people's sense of empathy. And the more oxytocin they released, the more empathic they felt towards Ben and his father. Now, we did something different after this experiment. We gave individuals a chance to share money with a stranger in the lab. And indeed, those who produced both cortisol and oxytocin were more likely to donate money generously to a stranger they couldn't see in the lab. In another experiment, we gave individuals a chance to donate money to a charity that works with children who are ill. And indeed, those who released oxytocin and cortisol donated money to this charity. In fact, the amount of oxytocin release predicted in both cases how much money people would share with a stranger or with charity. What we're seeing is that this narrative is changing behavior by changing our brain chemistry.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Allie, for playing that. And yeah, that story is absolutely gut-wrenching. I'm not saying that every story you need to share needs to be like that. There's plenty of different stories you can share that elicit that kind of reaction. But at the end of the day, I just loved hearing that and really seeing the proof, right? That people give to people. They want to help solve a problem, and they're giving because they're moved to help someone. And so at the end of the day, your organization is a conduit. You're providing them the opportunity to help this particular person. And this directly ties into how you position your year-end appeals. And so that was an amazing study from Dr. Paul Zak. But also, we saw that 50% of the people that watched that organization's video went on to make a donation. But this also correlates with the data that we found across the sector. So we saw of social media users who donate, 56% said that compelling storytelling is what motivated them to make a donation. And that was from Nonprofit Tech for Good. Also, according to a Google survey, 57% of people who watch a video for a nonprofit go on to make a donation. That's even more so. So how powerful are these videos and really the stories that they're sharing in these videos? We also see this on our end. So we do a lot of ads for nonprofits on Meta, and video ads continue to outperform almost all other ad types, especially at scale. So this is something that we are seeing with our clients and the 500 nonprofits that we're serving this year. I also found this stat really interesting from the Drum, that we're exposed to 5,000 or more brand messages every single day. But we're only actually aware of about 86 that will really, at least cross our mind. And then only 12 of these messages make a lasting impression. So the story that you tell and how you tell it can make you be one of those 12 that makes that lasting impression. And last but certainly not least, that facts are approximately 22 more times more likely to be remembered if they are part of a story. And so this means that you can still dive into all those statistics that I mentioned earlier that are really, really helpful at, kind of setting the stage for the massive problem that you're trying to solve. And so by telling stories, it just makes those facts stand out even so much more and packs more of a powerful punch. And so there's just so much there. And I really want you, if nothing else, to leave here with that stories truly are the key to unlocking empathy for your cause. And so you as a nonprofit have the most powerful stories in the world to share. I'm sure that you can think of a few even right now that have moved you. And so I want to help you come away with how you can tell these stories in a way that directly inspires action and donations for your cause. I also just wanted to briefly make a little note here. We had a webinar from last week with the amazing and prolific Donald Miller talking about the story brand framework. If this is something that you want to go even deeper into, but beyond this conversation, you can watch this whole conversation led by Floyd Jones from Give Butter on demand for free. But yeah, we had the amazing Donald Miller diving into a framework that you can also use for just all your storytelling, not just for your year-end framework. But without further ado, I want to dive into a year-end appeal framework that helps you drive the most donations for your cause. So I guess a little bit more about me is that for about 6.5 years before joining the Community Boost team, I worked at a fundraising platform. And so I have read hundreds of year-end appeals. And so across all of the different appeals that I've found, I sort of saw that there's a lot of consistencies with the appeals that got the most donations and captured the most attention. And so I distilled that into a framework that I'll get into in just a moment. But in case there's people here that may be doing year-end fundraising for the first time and you're not sure what an appeal actually is, I'll dive into that. So a fundraising appeal is the persuasive content a nonprofit organization uses to ask for financial support from your donors for a specific fundraising initiative. And it is truly the backbone of your fundraising campaign marketing strategy. Ultimately, we're going to be chatting about omni-channel fundraising in just a moment. But when you have your fundraising appeal dialed in, which includes the story that you're going to tell, this will echo through the rest of all of your marketing for year end. So really important to have this dialed in before you launch into your other marketing. And so when you have a really great appeal, it really does get your audience invested in your campaign. It also increases sharing. So I've seen that these appeals that I've reviewed, they'll get more shares because people are more invested in the story that they're telling. They're more invested in the cause. It also, of course, increases the number of donations. But what people sometimes don't realize that having a really, really dialed in appeal can also help you increase the size of the average gift. And last but certainly not least, because your appeal stands out to your audience, you're also more set up to retain those donors after year end comes to a close. So I have just a question for you, actually, is where are you at with your year-end appeal? Is it finalized and ready to go? Is it drafted, but you are still going to make a few revisions? Have you already sent it out? I'm just curious in the chat. Where are you in the planning stages still, or have you just not gotten to it just yet? I just want to hear and kind of see where you're at. So I'm seeing some are in like the planning stages, which is great. You're thinking about it. All right, so we'll leave that up for just another moment. All right. Gonna give you just 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let us know. And so, yeah, now is the perfect time if you haven't gotten your year-end appeal dialed in, or even if you have, to both write it for the first time, maybe, and also refine it. So, Diana says she's on their second attempt, and the first letter went out in September. That's awesome. So you got an early start and already reached half your goal. You can teach the webinar. You should come right up here. Thanks, Diana, for sharing that. And so something that I've seen across just so many different appeals that I've seen is that it has these 6 components to them. Now, they don't have to necessarily be in this order. I've seen it in this order, and I'll go into an example. But really, the first section of the appeal tends to lead with impact, saying who your organization is, what you do, and the amount of cumulative impact your organization has made over the years. And then diving into what the goals are for this specific year-end fundraising campaign. How much do you want to raise? What do you want to accomplish? And then also explain why that matters. You can explain, why this particular program that you're looking to fund will make an impact, or diving into just the amount of impact that your organization will have over the year if you meet your goal. It also integrates a story so that those stories that you already have ready to share can be integrated into the appeal to really ignite the empathy of your donors. It also casts a vision for what will happen when you reach your goal. What will the world look like when your goal is met for year end? And it ends with a clear call to action to donate with urgency. And I say to donate with urgency because I've read so many appeals that nail every other component, but then it falls flat right at the end. I think there's this assumption that, like, all right, you know what to do. You should just make a donation. But unless you say, now is the time to donate, people aren't going to know what you want them to do. And so, and we've seen that particularly like donate, give now is even stronger than maybe a more general support us. And so, people don't always know what support us means. So you want to be really, really clear that you're looking for donations specifically. And so I'll get into sort of some aspects of how I see this in this particular fundraising appeal from Fiverr Children's Foundation. This was from their Giving Tuesday campaign a couple years ago. That really, they use Giving Tuesday as a jumping off point for their year ends, which is also a pro tip. And so I'll just kind of be reading through parts of this as an example of how I've seen some of these components in their appeal. And so first up is lead with impact. This holiday season, make more Fiverr stories possible. So since opening our doors in 2000, more than 1,500 children have experienced the magic of Fiverr. So now I know this organization has helped 1,500 children. Great way to start. And now they jump right into the story, which I love. Justin is an alumnus who completed his 10-year Fiverr journey in 2018. This is an excerpt from his graduation speech. I believe all my life that I've been misunderstood. Growing up, I was called annoying, rambunctious, and impulsive, and Fiverr started to change me. We fun without technology and to cherish nature. I learned that it is okay to be me. I had the strength to realize my own flaws and become a better person. And that is why I'm forever grateful to Fiverr. Love the story. I love that they used a quote from him telling his own story in his own words. We'll get into a little bit of more about that later as a tip, but I just love that we are automatically connected to Justin, and I want to see him succeed, right? Next up is to explain why that matters. So For them, they said, becoming a Fiverr is about being open to growth and change. We have built a supportive community and culture where young people can take healthy risks, find their purpose, and address their weaknesses. So they talk about why it is important that they reach their goals and what they're really going to accomplish. They cast a vision. So, in a space devoid of judgment and filled with affirmation and kindness, Fivers like Justin develop an authentic sense of self. With confidence and direction, they are ready to make an impact on the world. And so, I think this could even be a little bit more specific with, really the whole vision for maybe how many kids would be impacted by this. But I love that they tie the story to the ultimate grand scale of the impact that they're looking to accomplish. And at the end, they say, with your support, we can continue this important work, making more transformational journeys with Fiverr possible. Again, this is a little bit of it's clear that they're just trying to really impact more kids. What I would love to see is a specific dollar amount and maybe how many kids would be impacted, but their goal is in there. And then also ending with a clear call to action. In this season of giving, we hope you will consider investing in our youth with a donation today. Love that they tied it into it's the season of giving, you're investing in youth, make a donation. Very clear what they want you to do as the reader. And so ultimately, that's just an example, but this framework can be applied to all of your appeals. So what you could do even right now is take this back with you, and you'll get the recording of the webinar, you'll get the slides and everything, and just think through your own appeal to see, do you have these components in there? And maybe what ways can you make them more clear or stronger so that you can really not just tell a story, but also maximize the donations that come out of your fundraising appeal. So I know I talked a whole lot, and I would love for you to save any questions that you have for the end. You can put them in the Q&A pane. We'll get to them. And I'm just so excited to turn it over to Geraldine to talk about how this really applies to the multi-channel framework for year-end fundraising.
Yeah, thank you so much, Candace. So I think what you just did was you laid out the stories, right? You laid out the importance of having a compelling story, having an emotional appeal. We'd mentioned earlier, we don't always want to lead in with the most sad, emotionally drawing story, but at this time of year, November and December, that's exactly when you want to use that type of content. So now you might have the videos, you have the photos. What do you actually do with them? How do you build an omni-channel marketing approach to help you tell these stories and to help you share these stories with your network and beyond your network? You want to have that peer-to-peer effect as well. So it looks like the results of the poll were that about 50% of you were very tidied up and ready, and the other 50% of you are still working on it. So if your strategy looks like what's on the left here and you need a little bit of help, it's okay. There's still time. Not going to lie, you don't have that much time. So definitely need to kick it into gear. But hopefully some of this content will help you understand what it takes to get to that bottom of funnel conversion funnel using the stories that you've been working so hard to gather for this time of year. So we do need a very step-by-step approach, a methodical and mindful approach to be able to target the users that we're going after and to be able to acquire new donors as well. So let's hit the next slide here. How many of you are familiar with the marketing funnel? If you want to just pop into the chat, a yes or a no. Don't leave me hanging. I'll take that as a, okay, we have one yes, that's great. Okay, great. 100%, yes. So the digital marketing funnel really is the process in which it takes somebody from that first touch point, so that very first awareness piece, to get all the way to the bottom of that conversion phase, so the donations, and then all the way to the bottom of that retention phase. So you don't want them to just donate once, you want them to ideally donate once and then come back, share your content with their network, gather a group of ambassadors, and really be a brand ambassador for your organization. So the digital marketing funnel has a few different phases, starting with awareness, acquisition, cultivation, then conversions and retention. From the very top to the bottom, it takes about 7 to 8 touch points for somebody to hit that bottom funnel. When you're asking for more, it's going to take an even longer amount of time, right? If you're asking for a soft ask, maybe you want them to sign up for your newsletter, that's going to be a lot easier than getting somebody to make a $1,000 or $100 donation. It's a different cultivation process. We have all, whether you know it or not, been a part of this marketing funnel throughout our lifetime, probably even just before you hopped on this, if you were scrolling the internet. If you go onto a website and you're looking at, let's say, a pair of shoes, and then you go back to Instagram and Facebook and you start getting hit with all different types of ads about shoes, that's exactly what's happening here. You are now in the funnel. They're trying to cultivate you. And if you're me, I fall for it every single time. I'm like, absolutely, I need all of that stuff that I looked at that I definitely don't need. So let's skip forward here and take a look at what the awareness phase looks like a little bit. So with awareness, you want to go after platforms that are cost effective. You are going after a sort of wide net of users. You're casting a wide net because you want to then start A/B testing to sort of weed some of that down. When you look at the platforms that do well for awareness, YouTube's a great one. Facebook and Instagram's great. There are several platforms that can help us achieve awareness. In the awareness phase, you want people to recognize your brand. You want them to know who you are and what you do. But most importantly, why should I care? And in 5 seconds, you should be able to transpire. You should be able to share that message of, why do I need to be involved? Or why should I want to care to learn more? So with Shanti Bhavan, we actually shared a couple of YouTube videos to be able to further develop their brand and that awareness. They have a Netflix documentary called Daughters of Destiny. And, they didn't end there. It wasn't just, okay, we have a Netflix documentary. That's the end all be all. We have hit the awareness phase. They took that and they continued to share content with new users to continue funneling that top of funnel awareness phase. With that in mind, we were working towards brand cohesiveness to get into that conversion phase. But before you do that, you need that acquisition phase. How do you actually capture people and get their information to be able to send them content, to be able to start cultivating them? So in the acquisition phase, we're looking at a call to action that's fairly simple, right? You're not asking them for donations. You're not asking them to become a recurring donor. You want to take them on a couple of dates first. You want to start getting to know them a little bit more. And within this acquisition phase, there's several platforms that do that very well. I'm going to mention Meta in just about every phase because you'll catch on to the fact that Meta hits every single portion of the funnel. Email acquisition, super important. When somebody opts into your organization, say they're opting in to volunteer, you need to send them content about how they're going to volunteer. If they opt in to volunteer and you send them a welcome series about donations, you're going to lose that user. So the acquisition phase is super important as you move into cultivating and as you move into sharing content. You want to make sure that you're hitting people where they met you and how they met you. I'll pop over to the next slide. So a couple of pieces here on this acquisition phase. We're just trying to get them to know us, right? Get to know our brand. We can ask them to attend events. We can ask them to attend online webinars. Maybe just give our page a follow. Just follow our organic social media content, or maybe come and volunteer. We're not asking them for money quite yet, but you're still trying to capture them in a way that will allow them to get to know you a little bit further. Ideally, if they're volunteering or if they're following your page or if they're attending an event, you're going to be able to share more information about why you do and why they should care about it. And I think the mistake that a lot of organizations make is that while I'm sure you all work for wonderful causes and you are personally very invested in the work that you do, not everyone is going to be. And it's going to take a little bit of work to get them to get to that place. And that's okay. It might be your passion project and your work on a day-to-day basis, but it's not there. So that cultivation needs to be very strong. With that, when they get to your site, don't let them drop off, right? If they're coming in from the Google ad grant, and I didn't mention the Google ad grant on the awareness phase. If you don't already know, nonprofits get $10,000 of free advertising for Google search. They're coming to your website from whatever source medium, whatever channel, you want to capture their information. You want to have the Facebook pixel on your site. If you don't already have a Facebook pixel on your site, it's free. Look into it, add that to your site so that you could start collecting data. And then you also want to have a way to capture, let's say, email, first name, last name, email information so that you can send them content. You don't want it to feel tacky, right? So back in the day, you'd have that kind of 1990s, you have a virus pop up sort of in the middle of your page and you couldn't exit out of it until you I don't know, your screen probably blew up. Here you want it to be very mindful. So let's say somebody's on your website for 2 to 3 minutes, then you show this pop-up element. Or if somebody's visited more than 1 to 2 websites or 2 web pages, then you show this pop-up. So let it be a mindful and intentional capture of how you're going after this user. Because if the first thing you do is automatically bombard them with something on their screen, it's not going to be a good feel for somebody who's just trying to get to know you. In the cultivation phase here, we're looking at several platforms that do this quite well. We'll just tap on over to the next slide. One of the strongest, okay, great. One of the strongest platforms for cultivation, really, I would say email marketing, as I mentioned, making sure that we're going after users as they've asked to be shown information. And then with Meta, this is a great way to be able to really dig into that cultivation phase and have your individuals who are seeing your content, you're showing them your content, right? They're not having to search for you. You're literally showing up on their feed. So you're going to start learning how people are engaging, what type of content they're engaging with, and then you can start building on that. So for these ads here, these are all partners of ours that we work with. Ranch in the Sequoias is personally one of mine. One of the things that we started doing is asking people to follow our page. We just want to be able to expand our organic reach. You can actually run a campaign that allows you to have people like your page and grow that following. That way, when we share organic content, it's going to go out to far more people than it did yesterday because we've now acquired hundreds and hundreds of new followers on Facebook. With Postpartum Support International, we're asking them to sign up for our newsletter. Within Meta, you can do lead generation captures. So you can capture first name, last name, email, actually have that automatically populate into your email CRM. And that way they get your cultivation piece right away, whether it's a welcome series or your monthly newsletter or whatever it might be. They're getting that content the moment that they sign up. With Pen America here, very similar approach to lead generation. Lead generation always tends to work very well because I don't know about you, but I personally wouldn't go around putting my email into things that I didn't actually want to receive content from. So if these individuals are sharing their information, ideally they are genuinely interested in learning more about the work that you're doing. All right. Then this is everyone's favorite phase. Most individuals want to skip from step 1 all the way to the bottom of step number 5, right? I get partners who start with us and they've never advertised before and they're like, we want donations right away. This needs to happen immediately. And it will. But that process of that funnel, the audience buildup, capturing the right users takes time. So if you've ever ran ads on any of these platforms and they didn't do that well, don't be discouraged. It takes time to build up that following and it takes time to build trust. More than anything, that trust is, it really is. We always call it a virtual relationship. It's a lot of cultivation, a lot of first dates before you ask somebody into that marriage phase here at the bottom of retention. Couple of examples here on what retention looks like. So I would say start with your lowest hanging fruit. With ICF, they're one of our local partners here in San Diego. During COVID, they wanted to launch a COVID relief campaign because Mexico was hit really heavy financially. A lot of the individuals that they were supporting no longer had that support due to several reasons. So we started a general donation campaign and it did very well, but it was going to a generic landing page. It didn't have cohesive branding for this COVID-19 specific ask. So what we did is we actually built out a landing page with the content that we were asking for. So the problem is COVID-19's hit, Mexico's suffering. We gave impact levels. So at $10, you can provide a meal to a kid who's no longer receiving a meal because they can't go to school anymore. For $50, you can pay somebody's electricity bill who's out of work and can no longer pay their bills. We made it actionable and attainable, most importantly, for most people. Most people can't give $100 or $1,000, but I would say many people can give $5. So make the impact levels achievable for all varieties of what people are capable of doing and giving. We also shared very compelling stories and content on that same landing page of some of the kids that were directly impacted there as well. And then a little bit similar approach here with SDVB, another local partner of mine. We've been working with them since I started here about 4.5 years ago. And we've been able to really build up trust by sharing testimonials and by sharing real stories, of course, with permissions from these parents and from the individuals themselves, of how a blood donation, and this is a very different type of conversion, because I'm not asking them for $5. I'm asking them to potentially take time off of work, drive to the blood bank, sit in a chair for 30 minutes to an hour, donate blood, drive back home. It's a higher ask. So what we've done here is we've built the trust by sharing stories of success. So with Camila, who's pictured in all these photos here, she has a rare type of anemia that requires a transfusion, I believe, weekly. And that in itself, right, is huge. This tiny little girl who we've been sharing for 4 years. She actually has grown quite a bit since the first ads that we put out. We've seen her be able to grow and live her life as a result of the people that have come into the blood bank and have donated blood. So that impact on its own gives an actual tangible story to the user who's donating, who has been seeing Camila on display ads. They've been seeing her on their website. They've been seeing her on conversion design elements, on Facebook and Instagram. You're building a cohesive story. And every single time you're going to donate blood, you're reminded of the actual face and the individual that you're helping. Even though there are hundreds of thousands of recipients of the San Diego Blood Bank, we're bringing it down and dialing it back down to this one story and this one person. All right. And then we added in some examples of the actual conversion ads just for you all to have. If you don't know, Facebook actually has a Facebook ads library. If you're ever wanting some inspiration on what kind of content to write or what kind of ads to put out, you can see all of the ads that are currently running on Facebook. So you can look up like-minded organizations to get some ideas. But for us, we always go in with, this time of year, our most emotional and I would say sad, more appealing type of content: animals, children, stories that we know are going to make a big impact. And then also the type of language that you use. If you have a match, double your donation, double your impact. You can actually specifically write that into the copy. And we always see that perform incredibly well during this time of year. Another approach that we take that's not as, I would say, streamlined or as common is sharing gratitude ads. So in these ads, we don't really ask for donations. We just thank donors that have donated to us in the past, let's say past couple of years, and we thank them for the support that they've shown. We can actually take list from your CRM, first name, last name, email, of people who have donated to your organization, upload it directly to Meta, and thank them for their support. These ads, despite not asking for actual donations, always drive in a ton of donations. People like being thanked, and we don't often see that on the internet. We always see something to purchase e-commerce, to purchase a shoe, to purchase whatever it might be, to donate to this nonprofit, give us money. There's been, a puppy mill with 10,000 dogs. We need immediate support. It's always ask, ask, ask. When somebody sees a thank you and they're scrolling, it's a completely different dynamic. And it still, for some reason, carries that emotional appeal over. And we do see direct conversions come in as a result. So I would highly recommend this as a year-end tactic. So you want to translate your stories into copy that moves people, right? You don't necessarily need to share Camila's entire life story, but we did give her a name. Her name is Camila. We did share what and how she benefits from the San Diego Blood Bank. We made it intentional. We've shared her story across different modalities and different types of copy. We've A/B tested what's worked best. We see that actually drives direct hope and a direct people feel directly compelled to want to give and continue giving. A lot of the ads say when we share them, people are always sharing, I actually donated last week, or I'm booking my appointment now. It's that continuous momentum. We don't want just a one-time blood donor. We want people to come back time and time again as they're eligible to continue to support. I mentioned the matching campaign copy, so highly recommend leaning in on that. The donation match does not have to be huge. You can get away with $1,000, $2,000, $3,000. The point is you just want to be able to add the match language into your copy. It doesn't really matter how much it is. Obviously, the more, the better for you all, right? But the point is being able to use that type of content really enhances the overall delivery of the ad. And then emotional appeals drive urgency. You don't always want to lean in with urgency. San Diego Blood Bank actually leans away from urgency unless they absolutely need it. And when they do need it, the audiences that have followed them for years really do show up. But we don't always lean in with urgent blood donation needs. We use it times when it's needed most. So you want to take that same approach with donations. We know that about 95% of them come in during the end of the year. Let's go in with that urgency and with those appeals when it's right. Oh, Candace, you're muted.
Awesome. There was some traffic outside, so I didn't want to distract. That was amazing, Geraldine. Thank you for diving into that. And yeah, this has been absolutely incredible. And I just want to leave you with a couple of ideas for not just how to tell stories across multiple channels, but tell the most effective stories. So I'll let this one come directly from my good friend Nick Hudson, who was formerly at Stupid Cancer, and he said that the best and most effective promotional tactics we use are posts that involve patient stories that come from the patients themselves. They're telling their story in their own words with quotes directly from them. Then we can say, here's how our organization can help. And so that is something that I love to see, is really empowering the voice of your beneficiary by sharing direct quotes from them, and also by engaging your audience to actually share their own stories, so that your year-end appeal becomes something that is also their story. And so they had a good example of this is their National Scar Appreciation Day. They encouraged people to share their scar stories, and said, our scars make us unique. Share your photo, share your story. And then this became something that they could also latch onto and connect deeper with by having their own stories connect with their campaign. And so I've also seen this example from Volo City Kids Foundation during their year-end campaign, and specifically their Giving Tuesday campaign. They started asking their the people who were giving to actually put their profile picture on social media as a picture of themselves playing a sport as a child. Now, Volo City Kids Foundation helps under-resourced children access after-school sports for free. So now you're specifically tying your own story and your own history with the mission of their organization. And that is really how something can, take off in a way that it just isn't just the story that you're sharing, but it's also the stories of your community. So I will leave you with that thought. And I also want to empower you to take home a year-end marketing template to help you turn all of these thoughts and ideas into action across those multiple channels that we've been talking about. So you can scan the QR code or just go to our guides on our website. You'll see that there's the year-end fundraising marketing template. And so this gives you literally like a calendar as well as a guide to help you really implement all of these learnings across all your channels for year end. So I'm just so thankful for you all for being here today, and thankful for Geraldine for diving into all of that as well. And we have some time for Q&A.
Yeah, I think one of the questions was, you have an example of a donation campaign you've worked on that is bilingual. So yeah, we actually do run a lot of bilingual campaigns, primarily Spanish. just given our region too here in San Diego. So we do a lot of work in Mexico, Latin America. And I would say just taking the content that you're writing in English and translating that directly to Spanish, but then also making sure that you're targeting the right audience demographic there as well, right? So manipulating the audiences on the back end so that the people that are seeing your content are ideally Spanish speakers, and Spanish ads are going to be relevant to them. And then another one was, do you have a resource for the Facebook gratitude ads? We can upload our CRM. So I posted a link in the chat on how to upload a custom list. So it's essentially a custom list upload from your CRM. So you would pull a CSV of the specific individuals that you want to target. So let's say you wanted to target people who've donated in the past year. Then you would pull that specifically from your Salesforce account or whatever CRM you use. First name, last name, email, and then that resource guide that I posted shares a little bit more about how to actually directly upload that into your business manager.
Thank you all so much. We do have some other questions too. Somebody asked, what are the ways that you can tell which are the ways that you can tell that someone is in what stage? So what are some like the indicators, or if you have any examples of maybe somebody in the awareness stage or the cultivation stage, and how you would tell the difference?
Yeah. So meeting them where they're at, or seeing where they're at, is a little bit challenging sometimes depending on segmentation, right? So on Facebook directly, let's say we're segmenting by actual campaigns. So I'm going to be running an awareness campaign, I'm going to be running a cultivation campaign, and then I will run a conversion campaign. So I know that the users within those campaigns are at specific phases of that funnel. I can also use pixel frequency and remarketing. So this can get very technical. I can go in and target people who have initiated checkout to a donation, but have not completed that checkout. So I know that they're probably still in that cultivation phase. They need a little bit more of a push. So pixel remarketing is probably the best way to be able to tell those different phases. I could also see if somebody's visited twice and didn't make that donation checkout. You've probably maybe seen an ad personally where it's like, hey, you've abandoned your cart. Why don't you close this out? That's pixel remarketing. It's just all based on what actions a user hasn't taken or what they have taken and how we can push them a little bit further. In the awareness phase too, you'll know that they're in that phase because they probably haven't clicked onto your site. They haven't necessarily taken an action. They're still maybe just viewing the ads or watching a little bit of your video content, but they haven't gone beyond that.
That's awesome. And then do you recommend that for all potential donors, or for donors that maybe have given as just like a first-time donor? What does that look like in terms of potential and then current donors?
I don't think I understood how does what look like?
Like as far as targeting ads and all of that, would you do it with only with potential donors, or would you look at that as well as maybe somebody who's given like a first time gift and is currently a donor?
Gotcha. Okay, great. So with that, I would start taking a look at, can you increase the content or the quality, or the quantity of the donation amount, right? So if we see that somebody has donated, let's say maybe once, twice, 3 times at $10, $15, I'm going to pull them into a funnel that says, hey, they might be interested in donating recurring, giving monthly, because they've already shown this initial interest. So the cultivation phase there would be a little bit different for people who've donated in the past. You also want to be mindful of how much you're asking them of things, right? That's why I'd mentioned the gratitude ads. You might take that list and you might not share the, hey, donate immediately, but you might share this gratitude ad with the intention of getting them to donate as well. So it's all about just cultivating audiences a little bit differently depending on how far you've gone into that funnel.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's something we always say here at Virtuous as well, is, thank you and being grateful goes a very long way with donors. So even something as we've heard examples of like thankathons and all that kind of stuff as well, which has generated a lot of results as well. We'll give it another minute or two, see if anybody else has any other questions here shortly.
This has been so great. I'm just thankful for everyone that has joined today and has been on with us. And so, yeah, thank you again, Allie, for having us.
Yeah, thank you both for coming on and sharing all of your expertise. It's been such incredible examples and so helpful. And thank you everyone for joining us. Just I know this is such a crazy time of year and you guys are super, busy. And so wishing you all of the year-end success and anything that we can do to help you guys, these last few weeks as we head into the new year. So
yeah, one thing I'll add in as a quick tip for Giving Tuesday, since that's kind of coming up around the corner. A lot of mistakes that I see organizations make is that they just run their Giving Tuesday ads on Giving Tuesday. Start a week before, like get that content up there and do countdown ads. So a lot of our partners will do, 5 days till Giving Tuesday, 4 days till Giving Tuesday, and time them so that they're actually being shown when the days are pertinent. But that buildup really helps with acquiring as many donations as possible and acquiring them on a day that's a little bit less convoluted. Giving Tuesday is crazy. There are so many people online, organizations sharing their ads. It's a very expensive day to advertise. So start a little bit earlier if you can.
That's great advice.
Love the pro tip.
Thanks, Jody. Well, if we have no other questions, then I guess we'll go ahead and looks like we have one. Do you recommend connecting with businesses that will help boost donations, such as doubling a donation?
Yeah. Absolutely. I know Geraldine might have an answer for this, but I'll just jump in quick. Yes. So I really recommend doing, you can get a corporate match. So if that's a relationship that you already have, because I want to be mindful of, it's November 8th. You might not have the time to build a completely new relationship with a business. But if you have any existing relationships with businesses, now is a great time because you can, ask for a gift that will act as a matching gift. Now, if you don't already have a connection with a business, you may want to ask your board to see if they have connections with a business that will enter into a corporate match with you, or actually just ask your board themselves. They should be donating during your year-end campaign. So I've often see that work out as well, where they'll approach their board or maybe a specific major donor or two to repurpose the gifts that they were probably already going to make anyway as a matching gift.
Love that. Great. Well, any more questions?
And you all can add us on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Yes.
Stay connected. I can drop mine in there. But yeah, this has been so wonderful. Having the space to connect with you guys today, and hopefully you took away some really actionable strategies for this year end.
Absolutely. And go check out the Google Ad Grant too as well and get some more information if you haven't already. It's a really, really great resource for organizations. So awesome. Well, thank you guys for taking the time to come on here. We're super thankful to have you both here and sharing all of your expertise. And guys, thank you so much for spending time with us. So we'll go ahead and give you back a minute in your day. But we are so thankful to have you guys here and reach out with any questions and happy to help in any way we can. Thanks guys.
Thank you guys. Thanks so much, Allie. Bye.